Well, ho chaps, so here we go, back again. We've just finished our first piece of research, so logistics is done, which is tremendous because that allows us to build some splitters and underground belts and the fast inserters, all of which are going to prove to be extraordinarily useful in ways that will soon become clear. Now, since we last met, I've built a whacking great conveyor belt up from my copper mine, which is now also on the power grid. As you can see, we've had to use a heck of a lot of conveyor belts and a heck of a lot of power lines in order to get this thing running. And based on our map here, see these red chaps down here? Yeah, they're not going to take too kindly to this copper mine. We've got another group over there. So they'll be attacking it beforehand, and if I've got the wits about me, I'll build some defences before it's too late and they decide to trash it. But as it stands, we've got one electric mine down there, and it is bringing in a healthy amount of copper. Loving your work, Mr. Conveyor Belt. Fantastic. So what we want to do now is we want to get it into a position so that I no longer have to individually fuel these individual furnaces, so that everything can be beautifully automated and we just get a nice big fat pot of freshly smelted resources out of the other end once we're done. So the first thing we're going to want to do in order to accomplish that is we're going to want to separate our coal belt, and we're going to turn that into one belt that does the power plant and the other that furnaces can draw coal from. So in order to do that, we'll put a splitter into the mix. We should have plenty of resources to get this done. It does take a little while though, and we'll discuss in this video how to make it so that there's less of an issue there. So what the splitter does is 50% of everything that comes into the splitter goes off one route, 50% rather goes off in another. So we've now got parallel belts running, and what we're going to feed those into is a whole bunch of stone furnaces. So I just want a little bit more stone before we get that underway. Once again, still digging by hand. I'll probably set up an electric mine on the stone in order to make this process simpler, but to be honest, as I mentioned before, we don't need a heck of a lot of stone to begin with right now. We will do once we start walling things in, but I've not really decided on where my final base location is going to be yet. The main factory is something that you're not going to fiddle with too heavily over time, whereas the resource harvesting you definitely are. So let's get enough furnaces up so that we can really start to push forward our quest for glory. So let's get 4 more furnaces on the go. Okay then, so we're also going to trash our existing iron mining operation and put that into something a little bit more efficient. Okay, first things first, let's get our iron mines set up in such a way that they're drawing down onto one single belt, just like that. We're going to need some more belts, obviously. You'll find that you go through conveyor belts at a rate of knots as time goes on, not least of all because they're a constituent part in the green research flasks. Okay, so here we go. We've got our iron coming out at a decent rate. We've got our copper down the bottom here that is also coming out at a decent rate. Now we want to automate our smelting. And in order to do that, we're going to need to get coal into the mix, which will come off our freshly minted coal belt. Now, I mean, we've only got one coal mine going, but that should be more than enough to get us through for the time being. So let's go. Now you're going to want a way of getting your resources into the furnace and then the finished product back out of the other end. So to start with, let's just go with one, and this is where our friend the inserter comes along. Inserters, basically robot arms who grab whatever comes from the 2-prong end of the robot arm. If I spin this round a couple of times, you'll see it's got a 1-prong end, and then the flat end, the 2-prong end, 2 feet, I guess, is where it's going to pick up from, and it's going to throw it out in the way the arrow is pointing. So let's get both of those grabbing from the coal belt. Now, at the moment they're flashing and they haven't got enough power, so let's hook them up onto our increasingly ugly power grid. There we go. So these inserters are now going to grab coal off there until there are 5 chunks of coal waiting to be used in the furnace. And it will then do exactly the same thing with iron. So let's get our inserters up first, ready to draw from the iron belt. Actually, we don't want to go that far. It will this right hand inserter here will quite happily grab from the very end of the belt. If I put another belt in there, you'll end up having a couple of bits of iron just sat there uselessly at the end of it, and you know, that's, apart from anything else, it's pretty untidy. So let's off you trot. Fabulous. Get those chaps powered up as well, and there we go. We now have our furnaces automated to the point that they're grabbing the power they need, they're grabbing the resources they need, and making me lots of lovely iron plate. Thank you, fellas. That's just what the doctor ordered. Okay, so now we want it to come out the other end, and in order to do that we're going to need a couple more inserters, but this time they're going to grab from the furnace and pull it out onto the place of my choosing, which is going to be onto another couple of belts. This game, not one for someone who has a pathological dislike or fear of conveyor belts. For Conveyor Belts Are Us is I believe, the original working title of the game. So there we go. So we're already pulling out our iron panels here. They don't go anywhere yet, but that's going to change in a hurry. Let's shorten our coal distribution belt here. And we're going to want to take these underneath the coal belt to a nice storage location, which is going to be an iron chest. So we'll pull our iron chest down here. Build a tunnel underneath the coal belt. Float that around. Inserter ahoy. Bosh bosh. Job done. Except of course you put everything in the wrong place. Helpful way like a pro. Fantastico. So there we go. We're now getting all of the iron plate being made from this furnace out onto the... look at this. This is why you can't have nice things. If you don't pay attention, you end up putting your power pole in the wrong place and nothing works. Solid was putting a pole in. There we go. Trees looking mournfully at their fallen comrades that have been turned into electrical distribution devices. Thanks to me. Now all we have to do is do the same on the other side. Now we've got two choices. We can either, and I think that's the one we're going to, we could quite easily loop this across here onto this main conveyor. But for reasons that will become abundantly clear over time, we don't want to do that just yet. Another inserter. Jolly good show. Right, so that's two furnaces now that are working beautifully, and we're ending up with this. I'll move this pole just so that you can see what's going on here. There we go. Feeding this chest, which is now my main repository for iron, and we're going to be coming to and from this resource heap on a regular basis. So let's get these into the smelting stack. Good. I mean, this is by no way near, it is nowhere near enough, not even close to the amount of iron that we need generating, but for now, it's a good start. We'll do the same again with copper. We'll put our two copper resources here, which of course is an entirely wrong place. Let's get a couple more inserters being built. I mean, you could call them extractors as much as you could inserters, I guess, but inserters is what they is. Right. Now what you're seeing here is one of the main features of gameplay of Factorio, which is realising you've just built something badly and then making it again. And this layout that we're doing now is not going to exist for very long. Everything is temporary because you come up with better ways of getting things done. Look at that, handsome. And then we're probably going to want another splitter belt. Belt splitter, I suppose. Go up here. In order to split down and provide coal for copper facilities. Get out of the way, tree. Taste my axe. Put it down there, just so that it grabs from the end of the belt instead of leaving stuff left out to look untidy. I mean, look at this. I mean, seriously. I mean, there's no due planning and care. We've taken a big swerve over around the outside with our belt there. I mean, it's pretty ugly, and I apologise for that. This is obviously not the standard that people have come to expect, but over time things will look glorious, I assure you. So we're now going to do the similar kind of idea with copper that we did with the iron, where we want it all to go into one chest. And that means another underground belt. Which will take us round over here. Into another steel chest. Good. So we now have the ability to get our copper in and out automatically, which is coming from absolutely miles away. And we've got our little copper stuff flowing into the chest here. Now, even with just two chests, you're going to start getting a little bit confused as to what's doing what. So with the judicious application of the Alt key, you can now see exactly what's making what. There you go. This is something that you don't always spot straight away when you're first playing the game, but it is one of the most important things you can do in terms of being efficient, generally speaking, is knowing where everything is. So we've got iron ore ironing, we've got copper coppering, coal is coaling along nicely, and even with these two iron extractors going on down up here, it's we're not keeping pace any stretch at all. So we're going to need to look for more efficient furnaces that can really chew through this stuff in a hurry. But that will come soon. Loving it. Right, good. So what's next? Well, next we're going to look at a little bit more automation. So we're going to go for an assembly machine, and that means more research, which needs 10 red flasks in total. Now our research bay here has already got 2 in stock, so we're going to build the other 8. And that's going to be our early game objective. Now that we've got kind of our primary resources all being pulled for us and smelted for us and then storing, is what we're aiming to do is make it so that we don't have to make any research flasks for ourselves anymore. We want this machine and the factory system to do everything for us, so that all we need to do is sit back and let the research flood in. And that really is the core gameplay that you're looking at in Factorio, is every time you come up with an elegant and beautiful and well laid out factory system in order to provide red flasks, you suddenly decide, oh, hang on, all the research I want to do now requires green flasks as well. So you then repeat the process, making an automated system to generate green flasks, which is significantly more complicated. And then, after you've got the green flask system working flawlessly, by which time your factory is humming along beautifully and you're probably out of your initial resources, you need to find a way to generate blue flasks, which is even more complicated. And then you find you haven't got enough resources from pool A or pool B or whatever, and you end up scrapping your factory and starting again. And this early stage of the game is really where the most fun is, because you don't have to do an awful lot of tearing everything up and replacing it. But progress is progress. And here we go, last piece of research being done now. I mean, what I'd probably choose to do in the very near future is set up at least another couple of furnaces there in order to get the iron ticking along a little bit quicker, and possibly a third and fourth copper furnace as well. So here we go, assembling machines, absolutely fantastic, and we can get those building right away. So let's get an assembly machine building. Actually, let's have two. And what I want these fellas doing, and I'm not going to connect them up in an automated fashion immediately, I'm just going to get them so that they can be building components so that I don't have to. We'll stick those down here. Okay, so as you can see, these will quite happily make science packs for me. Now, a science pack is made up of 1 copper plate and 1 iron gear wheel. So we're going to need to make some iron gear wheels. And iron gear wheels just require iron plate. Beautiful. So all we need to do is going to grab some more power poles quickly, so we can juice these suckers up. So we've got this one making iron gears. In fact, let's put these one apart. There we go. Iron gears here, por favor. And then by using our friend Mr. Inserter, we shall take the iron gears out of there and plonk them in here, where it will happily kick out science packs. We'll give it some copper to be going on with. As you can see, I mean, you're way ahead of me here, as you can see already that we could quite easily automate this. We pull a bit of copper out here through some conveyor belts and inserters, bang it into there, pull some iron from our chest here, route it round and throw it into the iron gear factory, and that already removes me from the equation. Beautiful. And we'll do that in a minute. But I mean look at this mess. It's just a complete shambles. We've got things working in the way that they are doing. I mean, it's getting job done, but it's not doing it in any kind of elegant fashion. So we can see our first kind of redesign is going to be happening relatively soon. However, that is not to say that we've not got progress happening here. So we've got flasks being made. Let's export those flasks. It's my one nod towards doing this properly, or at least sensibly. Oh, hello, what are we short of? Everything. Hooray for us. Fortunately, I don't have to traipse halfway across the map anymore. I can just pick it up from here. Right. Favour. Good. Yeah, let's just, let's spam poles all over the place. Why the hell not? We're going to be replacing all this stuff soon enough anyway. And then let's get some research on the go. Okay, what do we want next? So we've got a choice of electronics, which gives us the smart inserter, which is jolly useful later on, but we don't need it right now. Additional logistics, fast transport belts, also useful, don't need it right now. Optics gives us lighting, don't really need that. Turrets, I probably ought to be thinking about building gun turrets pretty soon. But when it comes down to it, I think it's going to have to be steel. So let's get steel being researched. And there we can go. Our flasks being deposited quite happily into our research building. And obviously we want to get research going as quickly as possible, so we'll build more research centres over time, in the same way as we'll build more furnaces over the time, more mines, and that's where we'll pick it up. I think next time around what we'll do is we'll rebuild this factory such as it is in order to be a little bit more efficient and to be able to kick out the red flasks automatically, and hopefully this will propel our research forward at an increased speed. So why don't you stop back and let's see how that goes.